So you're 202 weeks in to 100 consecutive mile weeks.
Yes.
What does the internal monologue look like on the days that you don't want to show up?
I mean, I hate to say this, but I really don't have those days. I mean, I really love running, and I haven't really had lows in these 4 years where I feel like I don't ever want to like show up or run. Sometimes I'll get like overly tired, especially 'cause I'm a firefighter, and we'll sometimes go several days without very much sleep, and I'll get I won't feel like running on those. I still want to run, but like physically I can't, almost like, and I just like take a nap. So I know that if like I get to a point where I feel like I don't want to run, then it's like, it's normally like, well, you need to eat or you need to sleep, or, you know, there's like just a couple things that would make me not want to do it. Cause I wake up every morning, like I know I'm a morning person. And so like when I wake up in the morning, like I'm excited to run. I'm excited to like start my day. Like I go to bed like thinking like, can't wait to wake up. You know, where most people like, and I wake up super early. And I know a lot of people can't relate with that. My wife being one of them, who she's not a morning person, does not like waking up, like would stay in bed all day if she could. And I'm not that person. Like I wake up like, all right, let's go. Let's get this.
You wake up with a fire. You're ready to go.
I really do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have like, you know, part of my consistency is I have a very like morning routine that I do that gets me like going in the direction. And
what does that look like?
So I wake up every morning and take a picture of my watch, because I like to like hold myself accountable that I'm waking up really early to get everything done. And also, you know, partially to show my followers, like, you know, that I'm being consistent and that I'm like holding myself accountable.
Is that something that you've always done, or is that something that you saw? Because I've seen that one other time before, and it was with Jocko.
Yeah,
Willing.
I think I've done it for about 6 years or so, something like that. I'm not entirely sure how long, but it's been a while. And then it used to just be a picture of my watch, and then I started sort of like writing either what I was doing, or like, you know, maybe something a little bit motivational, or like, you know, wishing people well on a race or something like that. I started like writing something on the watch. So kind of like the start to the day. So I do that. And then I drink Athletic Greens. Well, I'm not sponsored or anything, but I am.
There's the plug.
Yeah. I do enjoy, like, you know, for me, it's like, maybe it's doing something, maybe it's not, but it's more just like drinking like 20 ounces of water, like just straight off the bat, like I think is like very beneficial before you eat anything or do anything else. Why I do that, this is like, I feel cheesy like telling the whole thing, but then, so while I'm drinking that, I do like red light therapy, because I have like a red light that I like, mostly for my eyes, because I'm getting old and my vision's going. So according to my doctor, Dr. Andrew Huberman, I need to incorporate more red light into my into the mitochondria of my eyes. So we'll see if it works. But yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years. And then I eat breakfast, which is always the same thing. Granola and peanut butter. A lot of peanut butter, because it's like, I don't run fasted, but I don't normally eat while I run. So I give myself like a really like high carb, high fat, like something for my body to chew on while I'm running. And I take a variety of supplements, which there's a lot, but I take supplements with my breakfast. And I do a little social media. I normally like post my reels in the morning. I do like every morning I do a reel. Then I go run. And it's like every morning's the same.
At what point so you said you don't run fasted, you're having the peanut butter and granola.
Yeah.
What distance do you need to be running in order for you to have to mix in something that you're eating during the run?
Normally if I run more than maybe 3.5 hours, then I'll incorporate some food. Okay.
So you go more based off time than distance?
I think, yeah, because like sometimes I'll do like pretty hard mountain runs, and those are going to be like longer as far as time goes, but not as long distance wise. Like if I run to the top of our local mountain's like 11,000 feet. If I run to the top of that, it's only 9 miles to the top, but it's going to take me 3 hours to get there.
Yeah, because of the vert.
Yeah, because it's 6,000 feet of vert. So, I'll bring food in those cases. And if I am going to incorporate food into my like run, I don't wait till 3 hours. I'm eating every hour. But if I'm going to run fasted for like 3 hours, like I think last week I did like 16 miles and it was like 3 hours or something like that. And I didn't eat or drink the whole time. So partially, I mean, there's different like thought processes for that. Like mostly I'm trying to force myself to bonk, which again, a coach would say, don't do that. And I'm telling you, don't do that. But this is what I do. Because I like to feel bonky and I like to know what that feels like so that if it happens during a race, I don't like freak out.
It's not the first time that you felt that.
And so it's like, and if I feel it in a race, I'm like, oh, I must need to eat or I must need to drink, or like, I know what that feels like and I know how to correct it, rather than being in a race and being like, I feel like shit and like, oh, I can't go on anymore. And it's like, well, why do you feel like shit? What's going on? And like, I try to like dissect it while I'm running. But if I make myself feel like that in training, then it works out better in a race. And if I make myself do that during training and then like in a race, I give myself lots of food, then I feel super strong in a race because I'm like fueling myself properly and everything. So, but again, don't do what I do. I'm just telling you what I do.
Is that a common theme in your life where you try and push yourself to the limit that you could get to, or the limit that you quote unquote bonk, and then learn that piece so you can learn and grow from it?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to I like to get to that point where I either fail or almost fail, so that like I can change something and make it better. I've failed many races. I failed many times in life, and I always just try to come back stronger, or I obsess over what I did wrong. And just continually trying to like improve myself. Like, I think a lot of times online, and especially social media wise, people like to emulate what other successful people have done. And that's great. I mean, there's definitely a cheat code there, but I think the real joy in life is figuring out what your own cheat code is and like what works for you, because we're all very, very different. And so I'm always just trying to figure out what works for Andy and becoming an expert in Andy, not an expert in David Goggins or somebody else, but like what makes me tick, what makes my body tick, what makes my mind tick, and like just really just like picking that apart. And you know, as life goes on, you change.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to adjust for that too. You're not going to be the same person forever. So it's like, as I get older, things change. Like I said, my vision, right? So now I have to like adjust to that. Like I can't run as fast at night. When I was younger, I could like charge at night and it was like no problem. Now I'm like, don't fall. You know, I have to adjust.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. You also have some pretty interesting DNFs and falls that we can get into. But I guess before we double click there, how would you define failure? Or what is failure to you?
Yeah, I mean, failure would be like if you set a goal and you don't reach it.
Okay.
But I think, you know, there's many successful people will tell you that like failure is a good thing, and I'm a strong believer in that as well. Like, I think that if you fail, that means that you attempted something, and most people like won't attempt it. So I guess true failure would be not attempting it, right? Like being scared of something, or like, I don't think I'm going to get there, so I'm just not even going to try. That would be true failure. But I think also, like for me, it's like I set a lot of very like lofty goals, and you don't always get there, right? I mean, you're always walking that razor wire of like, is this possible or is it not possible? And so I learn a lot through my failures, and I try not to repeat those like mistakes that I've made. To you know, I'll go back and I'll dissect what happened.
I mean, it's like any other athlete. You're watching your own tape, essentially.
Sure.
You're pushing yourself to a limit. That limit gets you to a place where it's quote unquote failure, and then you'll go back and rewatch the tape, so to speak, so that you can learn from the experience. So it's, correct me if I'm wrong, you view it more whereas failure is you getting to a point where you learn something new than actually throwing in the towel.
Right. Well, and it's like, you know, you should be putting yourself in positions where you're scared. And like, I'm scared all the time and like get super nervous and anxious. And like, about some of the things that I put myself through. Like, I know, like, oh man, this is not going to be easy, or this is going to be like super hard. And, you know, how's my body going to respond, or how am I going to respond, or what's going to go on in my mind? And, but I make myself do it anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's important to be giving yourself goals, like large goals that, you know, you should be really scared to do. And that might not be possible. You know, I'm not saying jump out of an airplane with no parachute, because that's probably not going to happen. But
unless you're part of Red Bull and trying to go from plane to plane, maybe not.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, some people will make that possible, but probably not for me.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I was talking about kind of a similar thing in terms of failure, and how they were using polymaths, I believe is the term, or polyglots, people who speak multiple different languages. And they were using that as an example of how someone's able to learn 12, 15, 16, 17, 18 languages in a lifetime. And the guy, I don't know if he's the best in the world at it, but the way that he was viewing it was when he wants to learn a new language, he scores himself on how many times he failed that day in a conversation. And so he goes, I have to have 200 failures in conversation in order for that to be like a check mark of a day with the language. And he goes, I can learn a new language in 3 months. I can put myself in an environment, speak to people, and like, I'm going to introduce myself as tree, and like,
right.
I'm going to say that I want carpet for dinner, and like these things. And he goes, but I'm putting myself into an uncomfortable situation. And it's only when I am in that uncomfortable space that we actually learn. And I think that's why children learn so quickly. It's because they don't care about being viewed as like, I don't know, did the wrong thing or being judged.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's also how you view not only yourself, but your social content too, because you show up as yourself. And and there's no like, I'm going to like try and force this or be inauthentic this way to come off as a certain way.
And some of my videos do absolutely terrible, and some of them go super viral, and every day is just a new day.
Yeah.
You know, it's like every day I post another video, and it's like, you know, might get 20,000 views, might get 2 million. And it's like, you just never know. And it just doesn't really matter, like, either way. Because, well, I'm not sponsored, so I don't have to like show anybody my numbers. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm a firefighter, and it's the same thing in the fire service. Is like, guys get so nervous that people are going to like make fun of them, like when they're training, or they're going to do something wrong, and, you know, that they don't want to try because they're scared of that fear. Like, the kids don't have that. My son now, he's like almost 13, and he's starting to get that, like, where he's like, you know, he's worried about what other people think about him, and like, oh, you know, like we got him a haircut yesterday, and he's like, oh, guys are going to make fun of me now. And it's like, well, you know, that's part of growing up, you know, I mean, but like, they don't think of it like that. But when they're younger, you're right. They can just go because it doesn't matter. That's very freeing. I wish we could all be like that, right? Where nothing mattered.
Where do you think that comes from, that you put less importance on it than others do?
Well, one, I mean, because I'm just doing it for fun. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any financial, I think when you put money or like sponsorship or anything like that behind it, then there's a like inherent pressure to like perform. I don't have that inherent pressure. And two, because like my content is literally just me. Yeah. So it's like, and I am like, what you see online is like what you see is just me. I mean, I'm not like any different. So there's no pressure, because it's like, all I have to do is just be myself. And if you don't like me, then don't follow me. And like, it doesn't really matter to me, right? I mean,
it's like, pretty simple, right?
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, I did the same sort of hard things that I'm doing now back when I had 700 followers. You know, like, I didn't have very many followers for a long, long time. And I wasn't even trying to get followers, like, not really even sure how it all like worked out like it is now. Other than I made some videos that went viral, and then people started to see what I was doing, and now it's like, I don't know. Now it's like crazy.
So is the drive for you on social wanting to stay consistent, or is it more of you just have the interest in wanting to share your life publicly?
I think now it's. I mean, originally it was just like sharing my life, but now it's turned into more of a like, I'm appreciating the ability to inspire people, and I'm appreciating the ability to make people's lives improve by exercise and like doing things that like challenge them. Like, I get a lot of posts and people messaging me like, hey, I ran my first marathon because of you. Hey, I ran my first ultra because of you. Hey, I ran my first 5K because of you. You know, and I think that is like what really keeps me going now, is like just being able to inspire people. The world is like an ugly place and it's filled with negativity, and especially on social media, there's so much. I try to be like a little teeny beacon of positivity and just really push that out, hoping that it like counteracts some of the negativity and like, especially, I mean, even the running community, we're very supportive, but there are a lot of like very judgmental people in the running community. And so, you know, I'm out there like, hey, you want to run a 14-minute mile? Let's do it. You know, I mean, I think that's great. Like, you know, sometimes I run 14-minute miles. I mean, and that's okay. I can run a 5-minute mile too if I wanted to, but like I just think it's like, as long as people are moving, it's like a good thing. And there was periods of my life where I did not work out, and I did a lot of drugs and did a lot of drinking, and exercise and really like changed my life. It really like forced me to become a better person. And so if I can inspire just a few people to do that, then I feel like I'm doing a good thing. So much in the same way I like decided to become a firefighter. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to like, you know, do things that when I die, like make a difference. And so, you know, every once in a while in the fire service, I'm a paramedic. We get like a really good save where somebody was like dead and we bring them back to life. Doesn't happen a whole lot. But when it does happen, it's like super special. And, you know, that person then goes on and lives their life. They would have been dead. And so it's like, what did they do? Like, maybe they accomplished something great in their life, even if that's just being a grandparent or a father or something like that, that would have never happened had they not been brought back to life. Same thing with the whole running thing is like, maybe somebody like started exercising or working out, they lost a bunch of weight, they became healthy. Had they gone the other way, maybe they would have died younger. Maybe they would have like lived a miserable life, but you know, they were able to like make that change and then move in that direction. And then maybe they go and they inspire somebody else. And then that person maybe inspires somebody else. And like 5 people down the road, you know, they're inspiring somebody and they've never even heard of me.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Right?
The ripple effect that you don't recognize of how many people you touch.
Yeah. And, you know, and the more, you know, I'm like I don't even know, over 500,000 followers now. And it's like, so I'm touching like people from all over the world, and it's awesome, you know? And so that, you know, that does keep me going. It does like, it inspires me too, you know, to have all these people that are, you know, motivated because of what I'm doing. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really great.
Yeah. I think the coolest part or craziest part of all of that is if, say you take, because a lot of people think on social, they're like, I have 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers. That's not a lot. But if you put that many people into a room or into a stadium, that's a lot of people in one place. But if you take 1,000 people and those 1,000 people go help 1,000 people and you do that one more time, you've reached 1 billion people.
It's crazy.
It's the exponentialness of that is insane. And when you actually break it down of what you're able to do just by sharing your own positive light or your own peace in a way that like lights you up, someone could get a little spark from that, and then that takes it to someone else, and maybe they have no idea where that goes too.
I'm influencing their kids, and then, you know, on and on. You know, I get little kids running dinner miles, and you know, with their parents, and it's like it's cool. Like I love it. I mean, it's really, really great, honestly. So I'm lucky that I'm able to do it.
Taking a break from this episode to remind you that your inputs matter. This show was created to help you build a high-performing, healthy, wealthy life. And if you feel that you're getting value from this episode, please go ahead and share it with someone who you feel would benefit as well. Now, fun fact, over 90% of our listenership is not actually subscribed to the show, so it would mean the world to me if you went ahead and tapped that subscribe button. Thank you for being here. Now back to the show. Would you say your number one value is consistency?
I mean, I'm good at consistency. I don't know if it's my number one value. I think my number one value is that I like really enjoy doing like difficult things. I enjoy putting myself in like hard spots and like trying to figure out how to get out of them. I think consistency is like the cheat code to get there. And you know, maybe my I have like a bit of an obsessive personality. Like, you know, like when I was younger, drugs and drinking, same thing. I was like obsessive in that too, which obviously led me down a bad path. But pretty much my whole life, anything I've done has been pretty obsessive. And And I think if you break it all down, it's always just like that or not compulsive, that like consistency. That's just like whatever you're doing it consistently.
Or you're obsessing over the one thing that
the
you're
one
interested
thing,
in that moment.
Exactly. So, but also in life, I've realized that in order to get to those big goals that are so scary, you have to do 1,000 little things to get there. You know, the old adage of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so, I mean, I like today's Monday, and you know, I always do a big post about like Happy Monday. Most people hate Mondays, and I'm like, yeah, I think of Mondays as like the first day of the week, right? It's like we're starting the week, and we're gonna have a good week. Last week might have sucked. Last week maybe I got nothing done. But today is a new start of the day, and we're gonna have like a good week, and we're gonna start with Monday. You have 52 weeks in a year. You know, maybe your goal is a 5-year goal, so that would be like, you know, over 250 weeks. So 1 week having a bad week's not such a big deal out of 250. And so it's just that like consistency of like taking a big goal, making it small goals, and just breaking it up, and you know,
you're effectively chunking down everything that you are doing in your life.
And if I know, like, if I do X, Y, and Z each week, and that adds up over time, then I'm going to get to where I need to be. But, you know, the overarching goal is whatever, but it's like a 5-year goal, you know, whether it's like, hey, in 5 years, I want to run 100 miles, or in 5 years, I want a promotion, or in 5 years, I want to finish my master's degree, whatever it is, you know, breaking it up week by week works for me.
Where did that consistency come from? Or have you always been good at consistency first?
No, I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe just the discipline of being a runner and just like, you know, working out. I mean, before I was a runner, I like lifted a lot of weights. Before that, I did like triathlons. Like I've done like a lot of like physical activities. And I think anytime you train for anything, you just have to like put in the time. But I mean, I've been doing it for so long, like I'm not really sure what the origin story of it is. I've come to a lot of like low points in my life where I fell off the wagon for whatever reason. Like when I had my son, like I kind of stopped working out as much. There was a point where I got kidney stones really bad, and I like couldn't really work out for a while. And like just, you know, life happens, things happen. And then whenever that happens, you have to figure out how to get back into it. And so I would always like start slow. Like, okay, like you haven't really run in a couple months because you had kidney stones, or you haven't run in a couple months because you had a son, and when I had my son, I was in paramedic school, and, you know, all the excuses, right? I was working a full-time job in paramedic school and had my son. And definitely during that time, I fell off the wagon a little bit. I just didn't have the time to like do anything. Slowly, I worked my way up, just like running 1 or 2 miles a day. And, you know, as I did that, I would feel myself getting stronger and stronger. And then the next thing I know, like a couple weeks, I'd be like running 10 miles again. But I had to trust in the system, like my process. Like, even though I know I used to run 10 miles, I couldn't do it right that moment because my body wasn't where it needed to be. So,
but you knew going into that, I would remember.
I mean, that was what I believed in. Yeah. I didn't know if it was like really true, you know. Okay. Like same as like right now, I'm like tapering because I have a race on Saturday, and whenever I tapering is like reducing your volume before a race. I get a lot of questions. People don't know what that means, but so I feel like terrible why I taper because I'm not running like my
your body's so used to
it's the high mileage, and then all of a sudden it's like what are you doing? Like, let's go run. Like, well, I can't run. Well, why not? I want to run right now. But I just have to trust the process of like reducing the volume will then make race day feel better. But like mentally, I'm like, this doesn't feel better right now. I think we should go run, but I just have to trust the process.
Yeah.
And it works out. So
what does your taper process look like?
Mine's terrible. Don't do what I do. I normally just go really, really hard up until the week before the race, and then I reduce my volume by like 50%.
What should someone do?
I don't know. I'm not a coach.
Do you have a coach? You're your own coach.
Yeah, my own coach. Yeah. I think the most coaches will tell you like a couple weeks of reduced volume. I'm not really sure, but yeah.
Well, you go based off of feel too, and it's kind of like what you were talking about before with learning to figure out where you're going to bonk. You're pushing yourself to the level that you then know this is what feels right for my body.
It's a complicated answer because I'm not trying to win. I'm running 100 miles every week, so that already puts me into like a situation where I can't really taper. And I'm running like a ridiculous amount of ultras every year. So
do race miles count towards the 100 miles?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just running. Yeah. Otherwise the streak would be broken. So it's like, I mean, I ran 15 ultras last year. Most people don't run that many, like, and 11 were hundreds and 2 were 200s. So, most people don't race like that. So it's like, I'm not out there trying to like win it. If my objective was to win it, then I would have to like change what I'm doing. But my objective really is just to have fun and to experience the race. Occasionally I do win, but it's normally when like attrition or something, like everybody else has a bad day. And I just like the consistent, here comes like the tortoise.
Yeah.
Just like all the rabbits are dead.
Cake, yeah.
And then here I come, but it does occasionally happen. So, yeah, it's just like I just have a different perspective on what I'm trying to accomplish when I come to these races. So
the main outcome is pushing yourself towards something that's more and more challenging every single time.
Yeah. I mean, so like last year I did a 100-mile race and then I had one day off and then ran 250-mile race.
The Coco Canyons.
Yeah. So it's like, obviously in that situation, like it wasn't ideal. And I was putting myself into like a situation where I was very, like my body was very stressed and like, I had a lot of issues, but I just wanted to put myself into a really hard situation. And I succeeded. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. So,
do you have anything else like that in your sights for the future?
God, it's so hard to like line stuff like that up. That was just like super lucky. I mean, this year I'm going to just be doing a lot of really hard mountain races. So I'm putting myself, like I'm doing Leadville, which is like a hard mountain race, 100-miler in the mountains of Colorado. I think it's like 10,000 feet to 13,000 feet, like something like that. And then like, I want to say 10 days later, I'm doing UTMB in France, which is 106 miles with 33,000 feet of vert. And then
basically the height of Everest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's even higher.
I think it's more than that. Yeah. Everest is like
it's 10,000. It's 10,000 meters of climbing. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm doing Run Rabbit Run, which is another Colorado 100. So I'll be doing 3 very hard mountain races in like, I don't know, is it 3 weeks?
Like within a month.
Yeah. So that'll be challenging.
So I know you enjoy the process of running.
Right.
You say that like you wake up, you're fired up to go run. When you're doing like the Coco Canyons or you're doing one of these races where you have back-to-back and you get to a point where like you're just in the shit, what does that internal monologue look like?
I mean, it really has to depend on what the shit is. At Coco Canyons, on like the 3rd or 4th day, I can't really remember what day it was, but like I just started like falling asleep. Like I couldn't like stay awake anymore because I'd been up for so long and just done so much. So I just had to let myself take naps. I mean, I have a lot of tricks now to get myself out of like tough points, and normally it's naps and food. So as long as I keep those going, like I'm okay.
So I ran my first 100 beginning of December.
Right.
And something that I recognized in mine, so long as I had run leading up to that was 28 miles. And at mile 28 in the race, my body just said, fuck off, like, and shut down. But I realized that, like, my body said this, my mind said this, but I realized that I was, like, the awareness sitting above it kind of piece, which sounds kind of ethereal, but, like,
sure.
You're viewing yourself in that situation. And I continued to push through. When I hit mile 40, it was like I was fresh again.
Uh-huh.
It was like I came back, and it was like I was starting the race day one, and 40 to 75 just flew by. Have you experienced similar things, or what would be the reasoning for that, like, so deep in the suck and then all of a sudden you feel fresh?
Well, I mean, ultras is like, it's a roller coaster of emotions. I definitely,
it's like a lifetime in a day, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have that same thing. I normally, and the more I do it, the more it becomes normal. So it's like, normally the first 20 miles, I kind of feel terrible. Like I'll just get weird aches, like, oh, my hamstring's tight, my lower back hurts, maybe my ankles feel off or something like that. And I kind of like fight through this sort of like, uncomfortable sort of painy feelings. And that kind of all goes numb. And I feel pretty good. And then like around mile 55, 50, then I start like, I get like a really bad low. And I don't know if it's because it's like, that's probably like around dinner time or something like that. So it's like my body's like, hey, we need like a meal. Like I don't want any more chews or goos or what. I want like food. And so normally I'll eat something a little bit more solid at an aid station if I can, and eat a little bit more. And then like around 65 or something, I start feeling good again. And then it just really depends. The last 20 miles are either going to go really good for me or it's just going to be a slog. And that's like either or. I'm like, fuck it. I got 20 miles. I'm going to get there. It doesn't really matter.
Even if counting in reverse. We're going backwards.
Yeah. I mean, like if I feel terrible, 20 miles is not really that challenging to me. So I'll just like suffer through those 20 miles. This last race, I did a race on Saturday. Last 20 miles, I was struggling a little bit. But it's because the week before I had run 207 miles. So it's like my body.
Celebrate the 200.
Yeah. So I was like at mile 80. I was like, I feel those 207 miles.
I've done this to myself.
That was not a good taper week. So
do you, leading up to a race, do you have any like superstitions, things that you walk through, specific meals or things that you have? Or is there any type of like pregame routine, so to speak?
I used to like always have pizza before a race, but I got a dairy allergy, so that went away.
Because you're vegan now.
I'm vegan now, yeah, because I got a dairy allergy. I've been vegetarian for like 20 years, and then like 4 years ago, I got a dairy allergy, and so then I became vegan because a vegetarian with no dairy is vegan. So, not really. I like to run like a mile or two the night before, just as like a shakeout. I normally always do that, and I like to go to bed early. I think sleep, like good amount of sleep before a race is pretty like fundamental.
Especially a multi-day.
Yeah. And then, I just do the same thing every morning. Like I still wake up and I like eat my granola and peanut butter and I take my supplements and like do everything that I normally do. Post on my social media and then go run the race. So, not really anything special. I just like stay consistent. It's like the same routine. So I feel like really good about it because it's just like I'm going out for another run. My body's ready.
With the consistency piece, how do you view recovery? Because that obviously, with how much you're running, how you're viewing the races that you're going into and preparing for, recovery obviously has to be like a major piece of that.
Yeah,
or is it?
It's not really. My whole life is recovery, right? My whole life is like trying to get back to baseline, and I never get there. Because I'm running like 20 miles a day on average, something like that.
Your body's just become accustomed to it.
And it's been like that for years and years and years. So it's like I always feel sore and I always feel tired and I always feel like I'm pushing like cement blocks on my legs at first. I always like say like I'm always at mile 80. Like every morning I wake up, I'm at mile 80 and I have to figure out how to like push through it. And then when I'm actually at mile 80, it's not such a big deal because it's like every day I train at mile 80. Which again is not ideal. I know a lot of people like to feel fresh and recovered. Things I do, I drink a ton of water, absolute ton of water. I eat a healthy diet, like not a lot of like processed foods. I don't eat any fast food. I don't drink any alcohol. I don't do any drugs. I watch TV. I don't take a nap every day. I get massages. I do my ice bath every day. I do sauna work every day. I'm trying to think what else. Like
pretty standard.
Yeah,
pretty
like
standard.
All the sort of like that sort of stuff. People will talk about, and I think it works. Like it works for me.
How long do you do sauna and cold each day?
So we do like the 3-round protocol. So it's like 15 to 20 minutes and 3 minutes in the cold, then like 10 to 15 minutes and 2 minutes in the cold, and then like 10 to 15 minutes, 1 minute in the cold, something like that. Sometimes I only do 1 round, sometimes I only do 2. it depends. I got 3 kids and, I got all these things to do. So sometimes I only do 1 round, but I try to do 3 if I can.
Are you always like testing and trying new things too? Or is it like, I guess the question I have for you is at what point does what point do you start to look for a new thing? Or at what point do you look to implement something else into a routine that you can then become consistent with?
I'm always looking for new things. And I do that because, I run so much, like we'll say 30 hours a week. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and a lot of them are like health related, science related. And so anytime I hear like, hey, this works, or I'm always like, oh, I'll try it. I always like, and if it works for me, like, then I can keep doing it.
What's the length of time that you give it to figure out if it does work for you?
So I'll do it for a couple months. If I really feel like it's not working at all, like then I'll get rid of it. But, the sauna, cold plunge, I didn't have a sauna, so I was only doing cold plunge, and I would just do like 7 minutes straight. And I think that worked great, but I get a way better high when I do it back and forth. You get like a really intense like rush. It's like pretty amazing. So, I don't know if I get more recovery that way. There's a lot of the science about like sauna work being really good for like long-term cardiovascular health and things like that. Obviously there's no way for me to like test that. I'm a paramedic, so I do like 12 leads on myself, looking at my heart, and my heart seems to be in like good shape. I have a low resting heart rate. My HRV is really good. But who knows if it's like because I'm doing sauna or like I know the sauna works for like heat stress. So like when I do like hot races and stuff, I'll do like a lot of sauna work. And then the cold, I don't know if it helps for recovery, but I will tell you that it works for mental health like a lot. And I have pretty significant PTSD from my job, and the 2 things I use for PTSD is like cold plunging and like long distance running. I don't see a therapist. I don't do any drugs, but the dopamine release when you do cold plunging like really makes me feel great, makes me feel happy. It fills me with like happiness. And running long distance shuts my brain off. So those 2 things in combination really help me. And I'm not giving medical advice here, but I'm just I have a lot of friends that have PTSD, and they use like drugs and alcohol to deal with it, and I just don't think that that's probably the right way to like handle it for long term health.
Is the PTSD primarily from the job, or is there stuff earlier in life as well?
Yeah, it's the job. You just see horrible things.
The reason I asked though is because going back to the Huberman piece and like the science behind the health of it as well, with ultramarathons, there's like a big link to early childhood trauma and a big link to like things happening in life, and that's the way to regulate. And like I lost my mom when I was in my teens, and I think that was one of the reasons that I was so interested in endurance sports, or in sports in general, but then endurance sports in particular. Obviously not to the same level, but I've always been curious to see like what's the link, or what's the underlying reason, or why someone gets so interested and fixated on something like that.
So, I didn't have like a terrible childhood, but like, I got into drugs and alcohol and like did bad shit when I was a kid, and I got sent away. Have you seen the, there's a Netflix documentary called Hell Camp?
Mm-mm.
Have you heard of this?
No.
So,
Were you in the show?
I have not seen it, but I've had many people contact me about it, and apparently it's about this wilderness camp that people were sent to back in like the 90s, and it was in Utah and like all this stuff. Well, when I was in the 90s, when I was like 16 years old, I got sent to this wilderness academy.
The exact.
I don't think it's the exact one, but they had a couple going in Utah at the time, and the conclusion of the show, my friends that have seen it told me that like anybody that went through one of these camps back in the 90s like has like a strange addiction for like like endurance sports, because essentially they like kidnapped us, shipped us out into Utah, and we hiked around for like 90 something days, basically like survival mode. Like they gave us a bag of flour and a bag of cornmeal and a bag of boiled peanuts and raisins, and that's all we could eat for like 90 something days. And
you're 16?
When I was 16. And there was like 10 kids, and like, I mean, it was fairly traumatic. I mean, I loved it because it was like, I was like backpacking, but yeah, I don't know. It was basically like, so I was in like a bad spot, and like drugs, alcohol, whatever, like I ran away from home. And then all of a sudden now I'm in this like wilderness academy where I'm having to survive. And so I took my trauma from being the childhood stuff and then like turned it into like endurance, right? Because it's like I had to like hike and do all these like really hard things. So like maybe there's a correlation, right? Like maybe like because I was 16 and I was like my brain was still forming, and like that taught me that like when you're in like an emotionally bad spot, you can like exercise and get out of it. And here I am still doing it.
Interesting.
So I don't watch TV, so I'm not going to watch it. But like, a lot of people have told me that
it's like a child version of the Barclays Marathon.
Very similar. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's possible that like, that's why I like, cause it was like before ultras, I did, obstacle course racing. Before that, I did triathlons. Before that, I just did like running races. I've like lifted heavy. I've like, anything physical I've always been kind of obsessed with as long as I've been working out.
Was there ever a point in your life that you didn't work out?
I mean, when I was in college, I smoked cigarettes and was like super unhealthy. And then after college, I did it until I started running and getting back in shape when I was, I want to say 23 or 24. And previous to that, very little exercise at all. Yeah.
What was the tipping point to bring you back into it?
I mean, I started getting anxiety attacks just out of the blue, and I didn't know what they were. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and like my heart would race, and yeah, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I mean, this is sort of before the internet, before you could just go, hey, these are my symptoms, Well,
you search anything now, it tells you you're dying.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So, that was sort of a tipping point, and then I can't really remember if I went to a doctor or I talked to a friend or something, but somehow the conclusion was that I needed to work out, and I went and got a personal trainer and just started doing like basic lifting and like elliptical trainer type stuff at like an LA Fitness. And yeah, from there, here we are today running thousands of miles. So
it's continued through ever since.
But that was like, ever since then, it's been fairly consistent. I've had a couple periods in the last 20 years where maybe I wasn't like as high as it is now. Like I said, like when my son was born, and there's been a couple times that I got sick, but overall the last 22 years has been a lot of exercise.
Your kind of tagline, smile or you're doing it wrong. Where does that come from?
So it comes from a Strava segment near my house that it's called You're Either Smiling or You're Crying. And it's this like beautiful trail that's pretty difficult, but like I was running it one day and I was like, man, if like you're not smiling on this, you're doing it wrong, because like it's just like the best segment ever. I just absolutely love it. So that's where it like came from, and like I said it for a long time, and then now it's this
just kind of stuck.
Now it's this huge thing where but been around for a long time, way before I had like a lot of followers. I just think, and it's obviously morphed now into more of a like, it's that positivity, trying to push out that positivity and just trying to, remind people like when you're in like really tough spots that like you probably put yourself in this tough spot, and there's probably a reason why you're in this tough spot. And it's like, it's not such a bad thing. I mean, it goes a lot to races, but I think, life is a race, and like, maybe you're trying to get a promotion or whatever, but just to remind yourself that like, this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. You know, if you're feeling pain in a race, it's not such a bad thing. If you like think about like the big picture, which is like, you can race, you're healthy, you're strong, you've trained for this. You know, there's a lot of people out there that cannot be in the position you're in right now. And it's not always their like decision. Like maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they were born with one leg, or like, you know, born and not being able to run. So just trying to like, I'm always trying to take negatives and switch them into people's brains into positives. Because I mean, ultras are a mental game. Life is a mental game. And the lessons you learn out in the ultramarathon, you can easily translate into business, school, like life, family, whatever. Just it's easier to learn it in an ultra because it's just a day, you know, whereas, you know, life and everything else is over your, you know, many years.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think there's something to be said with that too, because I mean, if you view life as a race, if you're only seeking to get to the end goal, it's like, why am I racing towards my death?
right.
If that's the only inevitable that we know that is going to happen in our life, the only concrete thing. It's like, if you're in this, one, any storm runs out of rain. Every storm runs out of rain at some point. So if you're in the shit, you know it's going to get good. If you're in the good, you know at some point it's going to go the opposite. So just enjoy presently where you're at.
Right.
And if you can like smile, or you're doing it wrong, if you do that daily, you're stacking and compounding enough of those consistent days to get to some end goal.
Well, and if you smile at somebody, they inherently smile back. And if they smile, then like there's a trigger in their brain that might help them out too. Like I love out and back races because it's like I get across all these people and they're all coming at me and they're like grimaced and like, you know, I always like smile at them like, great job, you know, and then like they don't know what to do because they're in the shit, you know, they're in the low part of the roller coaster, but they'll always smile back at me, thanks, or like whatever. And then I know that there's a shift in their brain now. And it's like, maybe it's just small and maybe it doesn't do anything, but maybe it like gets them back up on that upswing with the roller coaster and then they start going in a better direction. Might happen.
I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
I've always liked loops. So that you never see the same terrain
well, no, even
twice.
on a loop, sometimes you'll pass people, right? If you're doing a loop, like sometimes
I see. Like in a race setting.
Or sometimes they do loops where it's like you know, like a washing machine style, so you do one this way and one this way. You'll see people. But yeah, giant loops. I mean, that's obviously fun too. You know.
One of the questions I have for you, based on kind of everything that we've talked about, is what would you say is what impact or input, I should say, what input has produced the largest return for you in your life?
I think when I switched from in my life, I was I did like computers and networking and stuff. And when I switched to like the fire service, I think that was probably like the biggest because I was shifting from sort of like just making money and like that was more my focus in life to helping people and like doing things that like made people's lives better, but maybe didn't make me as rich. And I think that was like a huge shift in my whole life and input and everything was that mindset of like doing something to make the world better rather than doing something to make Andy wealthier. And I think in life in general, like, you know, we're very money centric and like, it's all about who has the biggest house and nicest car and things like that. And, you know, I'm not saying that that's not important and it's nice to have nice things. But for me, when I shifted and decided I was going to like focus more on helping people rather than, you know, just making myself better.
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing for me.
Or assuming that the only riches is monetary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but that's what we're taught a lot.
Yeah.
You know, American society is, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. So.
Well, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Closing tradition on the podcast is, what is your most gifted or favorite book?
It's Man's Search of Meaning.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, I love that book. I try to read it like every year just because the book stays the same, but you change. And so it's like, I think it's when you find a book that you really like, I like to go back and read it and see if it applies differently to my life. But yeah, that's my favorite.
My top three too.
Yeah, it's a good
in there.
I mean, it's terrible and it's beautiful, you know, but it's a great book.
Where is the best place for people to find you, or where would you like to direct people to?
So on Instagram, I'm AM Glaze, like Am Glaze. TikTok, I'm Glaze Runs. And Strava, I'm Andrew Glaze.
With the verified check.
That's
on
right.
Strava.
Look for the orange check mark.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Andy, anything else you wanted to say before we sign off?
Your daily reminder to do hard things.
As it wouldn't have it any other way. Andy, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have a great
thank
day.
you.